The ship landed on the alien world just as the twin suns began to set. Kate Morgan stood at the window of the transport vessel and watched the sky turn from deep purple to burning orange. She had never seen anything so beautiful in her 28 years of life. She had also never been so afraid. Behind her, Ambassador Daniel Harris was checking his formal uniform for the third time. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had served Earth for 30 years in the diplomatic corps. He had negotiated peace with 12 different alien species. But tonight would be the most important night of his career. Tonight, humanity would meet the ZYRATH. Kate turned away from the window and walked to where Daniel stood before a mirror. She was his personal aide, the youngest person ever appointed to such a position. Some people back on Earth said she was too young. Some said she was not ready. But Daniel had chosen her himself, and he never made mistakes about people. "How do I look?" Daniel asked, adjusting his collar. "Like a man about to change history," Kate replied. Daniel smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "Oh, like a man about to fail completely." Kate understood his fear. Everyone on the ship understood it. The Zirathi were not like other aliens humanity had encountered. They were ancient. They were powerful. Their empire stretched across 300 star systems, and their technology was so advanced that human scientists could not even understand how it worked. For 50 years, humanity had been expanding into the galaxy. They had met friendly species and hostile ones. They had won some wars and lost others. But through all of it, they managed to survive. They had carved out a small corner of space and called it home. Then the Zirathi had noticed them dot. It had happened 6 months ago. A Zirathi patrol ship had appeared near Earth without warning. It had transmitted a simple message. "We have watched you. We wish to speak. Send representatives to our homeworld in 100 days. That was all. No threats, no demands. Just an invitation. But everyone knew the truth behind that invitation. The Zirathi could destroy Earth whenever they wanted. Their fleet was larger than all human ships combined. Their weapons could crack planets in half. If they decided that humanity was a threat, or simply an annoyance, there would be nothing anyone could do to stop them. This diplomatic mission was not really about making friends. It was about survival. The transport ship descended through clouds that glowed with strange colors. Kate watched through the window as the Zirathi capital city came into view. It was massive. Buildings rose toward the sky like mountains made of black glass. Rivers of light flowed between them, carrying vehicles that moved without sound. The city looked like something from a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. When the ship landed on a platform, high above the city streets, the delegation gathered near the exit. There were 20 humans in total. Diplomats, translators, security officers, and support staff. Kate stood beside Daniel at the front of the group. The door opened, and they stepped out into the alien night. Zirathi guards were waiting for them. They were tall creatures, nearly 8 feet in height, with silver scales that covered their bodies like armor. Their eyes were golden, without pupils, and they seemed to glow in the darkness. They wore no visible weapons, but Kate felt certain they did not need any. "Ambassador Harris," one of the guards said. Its voice was deep and strange, like rocks grinding together. "I, King Vorath, welcomes you to the Dominion. Please follow." They walked through corridors of polished black stone. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, glowing faintly with inner light. Kate tried to read them, but the Zirathi language was unlike anything she had studied. It was older than human civilization itself. The Great Hall was larger than any space Kate had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that it seemed to merge with the night sky. Perhaps it did. Perhaps there was no ceiling at all, only the stars themselves looking down at the proceedings below. Long tables stretched across the hall, covered in white cloth and laden with food and drink. Hundreds of Zirathi sat at these. tables, their golden eyes turning toward the humans as they entered. The room fell silent. At the far end of the hall, raised on a platform of black crystal, sat the Alpha King. Vorath was larger than the other Zirithi, his scales darker, almost black in some places. He wore no crown, no jewelry, no symbols of office. He did not need them. Power radiated from him like heat from a fire. When he looked at the human delegation, Kate felt as if he was looking directly into her soul. Daniel walked forward with steady steps. Kate followed close behind, carrying the gifts and documents they had brought from Earth. The other members of the delegation spread out behind them, taking their assigned places at the tables. "Ambassador Daniel Harris of Earth," Vorath said. His voice filled the entire hall without effort. "You have traveled far." "Hi, King Vorath," Daniel replied, bowing his head in the gesture they had been taught. "We are honored by your invitation." Invitation. Vorath seemed to taste the word. Yes, that is what it was. "Please, sit. Eat. Tonight we feast, and we talk, and we learn about each other." Kate helped Daniel to his seat at a table near the platform. She took her own place beside him, as protocol demanded. Servants began bringing food, strange dishes that smelled of spices Kate could not identify. But it was the wine that mattered most. Kate had studied Zirithi culture for months before this mission. She knew that the Feast of Accord was their most sacred ceremony. The wine was central to everything. When two parties drank together, they were bound by ancient laws of honor. To share wine was to share truth. To refuse wine was to declare war. A servant approached their table carrying a crystal bottle. The wine inside was red, darker than any wine Kate had seen on Earth. The servant poured carefully, filling the goblet that sat before Daniel. "The wine of accord," Vorath announced from his throne. "Blessed by our ancestors, sealed with our honor. When you drink, Ambassador, you drink with the Dominion. Our word becomes your word. Our promise becomes your promise." Daniel nodded. "I understand, High King." But Kate was not listening to the ceremony. She was watching the shadows at the edge of the hall, where figures moved that did not seem to belong. She was watching the servants, noticing how some of them exchanged glances that seemed too meaningful. She was watching a Zirithi council member, near the platform, whose eyes kept darting toward Daniel with an expression that looked almost like anticipation. Something was wrong. Kate did not know what it was yet, but she had learned to trust her instincts. Those instincts had saved her life more than once during her short career. And right now, those instincts were screaming at her that danger was close. Very close. Daniel reached for his goblet. Kate watched, and she worried, and she waited. 3 hours before the feast began, Kate had been alone in her quarters on the transport ship. She was reviewing the ceremony protocols one more time, making sure she had memorized every gesture and every phrase. The Zirithi were very particular about such things. A single mistake could be seen as an insult. Her communication device buzzed. It was a small unit, designed for secure transmissions between members of the delegation. Kate picked it up and saw that the message was marked urgent, but the message was not meant for her. It was a transmission error, a glitch in the encryption system that had sent the message to the wrong device. Kate knew she should delete it without reading. Privacy protocols were clear about such things, but the sender's code caught her attention. It belonged to Commander Gary Blake, the head of security for the delegation, and the message was going to someone outside the ship. Entirely. Kate opened the message. What she read made her blood turn cold. The message was short and direct. It contained coordinates, timing details, and a simple confirmation. The package is in place. Target will be eliminated during the ceremony. Make sure the Zirithi Council members are prepared to respond. Humanity must not survive this night. Kate read the message 3 times. Her hands were shaking. Commander Blake was a traitor. He was working with someone, perhaps multiple people, to assassinate Ambassador Daniel Harris. And from the message, it was clear that Zirithi conspirators were involved as well. She tried to contact Daniel, but her communication was blocked. She tried the other members of the delegation, but every channel was dead. Blake had done something to their systems. He had isolated her. Kate sat on her bed and forced herself to think clearly. She was alone. She had no way to warn anyone. The conspirators controlled the communications, and they had people inside the Zirithi Council itself. If she tried to expose them openly, they would simply accelerate their plan. What would happen if Daniel died tonight? Kate knew the answer. The Zirithi would blame humanity. They would see the assassination as proof that humans could not be trusted. The fragile hope of alliance would shatter, and the Dominion would have its excuse to destroy Earth. That was the real plan. Not just to kill one man, but to start a war. Kate stood and walked to the window. The alien city spread out before her, beautiful and terrible. Somewhere out there, enemies were waiting. Enemies who wore human faces and spoke human words. Enemies who wanted humanity to burn. She had to stop them. But how? Kate thought about the ceremony. The wine was the key. If the conspirators wanted to kill Daniel during the feast, the wine was the obvious choice. Zirithi poison would not be detected by human scanners. And once Daniel drank, everyone would believe he had been killed by Zirithi hospitality. The conspirators needed Daniel to drink that wine. Kate began to form a plan. It was a terrible plan. It would destroy her career. It might destroy her life. Daniel would hate her for it. Everyone would hate her for it. But if it worked, Daniel would survive. And if Daniel survived, then Earth had a chance. She spent the next 2 hours preparing. She memorized the layout of the Great Hall from the briefing documents. She studied the positions of the guards and the servants. She calculated angles and distances and timing. When the delegation assembled to leave for the feast, Kate took her place beside Daniel as if nothing had changed. She smiled when he made jokes about his nervousness. She offered him words of encouragement. And inside, she carried a weight that felt like it might crush her. Commander Blake stood with the security team near the back of the group. He was a large man with a hard face and cold eyes. Kate had always thought there was something wrong about him, something that did not match his friendly words and easy laughter. Now she knew what it was. He was a monster wearing human skin. Blake caught her looking at him and smiled. It was the smile of a predator who did not know he'd been discovered. Kate smiled back and looked away, her heart pounding in her chest. The walk to the Great Hall seemed to take forever. Every step brought them closer to the moment of truth. Kate went over her plan again and again, looking for weaknesses, looking for alternatives. There were none. This was the only way. When they entered the hall and saw the hundreds of Zirithi watching them, Kate felt a strange calm settle over her. Fear was still there, but it had been pushed to the side. What remained was focus, purpose, determination. She helped Daniel to his seat and took her own place beside him. The ceremony began. Words were spoken. Gestures were made. And through it all, Kate watched. She saw Blake position himself near one of the exits, ready to escape when chaos erupted. She saw the Zirithi council member who kept watching Daniel, the same one she had noticed before. His name was Counselor Dreth, and his eyes held the hungry look of someone waiting for a meal. She saw the servant who poured the wine, and she noticed that he was not the same servant who had been assigned to their table originally. This one moved differently, with purpose rather than routine. The wine in Daniel's goblet was poisoned. Kate was certain of it now. High King Vorath made his speech about the wine of accord. His deep voice echoed through the hall, speaking of honor and truth and binding promises. Kate barely heard the words. She was counting seconds, measuring distances, preparing herself. Daniel reached for his goblet. Kate looked at him, at this man who had been like a father to her for the past 3 years. He had taught her everything she knew about diplomacy. He had believed in her when no one else did. He had given her a chance to prove herself, and she had tried so hard to be worthy of his trust. Now she was about to betray him, or save him. Perhaps. Both. Kate took a deep breath. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who would die if this mission failed. She thought about her parents, who had cried when she left for space. She thought about the future that humanity might never have if she did not act. Daniel's fingers touched the goblet. Kate stood up. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. She saw Daniel's confused expression. She saw Blake's sudden alertness. She saw Counselor Dreth leaning forward with eager anticipation, and she saw High King Vorath on his throne, his golden eyes turning toward her with an intensity that made her soul shiver. Kate moved forward. Her hips struck the table. Her arms swept out in what looked like an accident but was actually perfectly controlled. Her hand connected with Daniel's goblet. The wine spilled. Red liquid spread across the white ceremonial cloth like blood from a wound. Drops fell to the floor, staining the ancient stones. The sound of shattering crystal seemed to echo forever in the sudden silence. Kate had done it. She had stopped Daniel from drinking, and she had just committed the greatest insult possible in Zirathi culture. The hall erupted. The silence lasted for exactly 2 heartbeats. Then chaos exploded through the great hall like fire through dry grass. Zirathi voices rose in anger, their words crashing together like thunder. Guards moved forward from every direction, their hands reaching for weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The human delegation scrambled to their feet, confused and terrified, not understanding what had just happened. Daniel grabbed Kate's arm so hard that it hurt. His face had gone completely white. "What have you done?" he whispered. "Kate, what have you done?" She could not answer him. There was nothing to say that would make sense, nothing that would not sound like the words of a madwoman. So she stayed silent and stood straight and waited for whatever came next. Counselor Dreth was on his feet, pointing at her with a clawed finger. His golden eyes burned with fury, but Kate saw something else there too. Fear. She had ruined his plan, and now he was afraid of what might happen next. "This human has insulted the Dominion," Dreth shouted. "She has spilled the wine of accord. By ancient law, she must be executed, and her people must be judged as enemies." Other council members echoed his words. The sound of their voices filled the hall like the roar of an angry ocean. Kate felt very small, very alone, very human among these alien giants who wanted her blood. Commander Blake was trying to slip toward the exit. She saw him from the corner of her eye, moving carefully through the crowd, using the chaos as cover. Part of her wanted to scream his name, to expose him for what he was. But she knew that would only make things worse. Without proof, her accusation would seem like desperation. The guards reached her. Strong hands gripped her shoulders, her arms, holding her in place. Kate did not struggle. She let them take her, let them treat her like a criminal. Every second that passed was a second in which Daniel was not drinking poisoned wine. "Release her." The voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like a blade through cloth. Every other sound stopped. Every eye turned toward the platform where High King Vorath was rising from his throne. The Alpha King was even more impressive standing than sitting. He seemed to fill the entire hall with his presence. His dark scales caught the light and reflected it back like stars on a moonless night. His golden eyes swept across the room, and everywhere they touched, people fell silent. "High King," Counselor Dreth began, "this human has committed. I know what she has committed," Vorath said. "I was watching. I saw everything." He descended the steps from his platform slowly, each footstep echoing through the silent hall. The crowd parted before him like water before a ship. When he reached the table where the wine had been spilled, He stopped and looked down at the spreading stain on the white cloth. Kate watched him, her heart beating so hard she thought it might break through her chest. The Alpha King was the only one in this room who could save her. He was also the only one who could doom her. Everything depended on what he saw, and what he decided to do about it. Vareth bent down and touched the spilled wine with one clawed finger. He lifted it to his face and smelled it. Then, very slowly, he touched the finger to his lips and tasted. For a long moment, nothing happened. The hall waited in breathless silence. Kate felt the guard's hands tighten on her arms, ready to drag her away the instant the order was given. Then Vareth's eyes changed. The golden glow intensified, and something dark moved behind it. Something dangerous. "Bring me a scanner," he commanded. A servant rushed forward with a small device. Vareth took it and passed it over the stained cloth. He studied the readings for a long moment. When he looked up, his face was as hard as stone. "This wine has been poisoned," he said. The words fell like bombs into the silence. Suddenly, everyone was talking at once. The council members looked at each other in confusion and fear. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Daniel stared at his empty goblet with the expression of a man who had just seen his own grave. "That is impossible," Councillor Dreth protested. "The wine was prepared by our own servants, blessed by our own priests. No one could have evanned, and yet someone did." Vareth's eyes found Dreth and held him in place. "The poison is Nexer 7. It is lethal to humans, but harmless to Zirathi. It kills within minutes, leaving no trace that human medicine could detect. Someone wanted Ambassador Harris to die tonight, Counselor. Someone wanted it to look like an accident, or perhaps like Zirathi treachery." Kate saw understanding dawn on Daniel's face. He looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw his anger transform into something else. Confusion, wonder, gratitude. "You knew," he said quietly. "Kate, you knew about the poison." She nodded, still unable to speak. "Why did you not tell me?" "I could not," she finally said. "Our communications were blocked. The conspirators had people everywhere. If I had spoken openly, they would have killed you sooner, and everyone else with you." High King Vareth stepped closer to her. The guards who held her suddenly seemed very small compared to his towering presence. He studied her face with those terrible golden eyes, and Kate felt as if he was reading her like a book. "You spilled the wine deliberately," Vareth said. "It was not a question." "Yes. You knew this act would be seen as an insult. You knew it would turn my people against you." "Yes. You knew you might be executed for it." Kate swallowed hard. "Yes." Vareth was silent for a long moment. The entire hall waited, hanging on his next words. Kate could hear her own breathing, too loud in the quiet. She could feel her heart hammering against her ribs. "You sacrificed your honor to save your ambassador," Vareth said slowly. "You sacrificed your reputation, your freedom, possibly your life. All to protect one man from poison you had no way of proving existed." "He is my friend," Kate said simply, "and my world needs him. My world needs this alliance. I did what I had to do." Vareth looked at her for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, something changed in his expression. The hardness softened, just slightly. The anger in his eyes transformed into something that almost looked like respect. "The sight shows me many things," he said quietly, speaking only to her now. "It shows me the truth behind actions, the intentions behind words. I have watched you since you entered this hall, human. I saw your fear, but I also saw your purpose. When you moved to spill that wine, I saw no malice in your heart, only desperate love." He turned to face the hall, raising his voice so all could hear. "This woman is not an enemy of the Dominion. She is a hero. She saved her ambassador from assassination, and in doing so, she prevented a war that would have destroyed her species. The guards released Kate's arms. She stumbled slightly, not used to standing on her own again. Daniel caught her before she could fall. "But there are enemies in this room," Marth continued, his voice now cold as ice. "Enemies who planned this assassination. Enemies who wanted to see humanity burn." His golden eyes found Commander Blake near the exit. "Seal the doors," Marth commanded. "No one leaves until I find every traitor in this hall." The doors slammed shut with a sound like thunder. Commander Blake froze in mid-step, his hand reaching for an exit that was now sealed with energy barriers. For a moment, his face showed pure terror. Then the mask returned, the friendly smile and easy confidence that had fooled everyone for so long. "High King, this is surely a mistake," Blake said, turning to face Vorath with raised hands. "I was simply trying to organize our security personnel. In a crisis like this, we need to establish a perimeter. Silence." The single word from Vorath cut through Blake's lies like a knife. The Alpha King moved through the crowd toward the human traitor, and everyone in his path scrambled to get out of the way. Even the Zirathi guards seemed small next to their ruler. Kate watched from Daniel's side, her body shaking with relief and exhaustion. She had done what she needed to do. Now it was up to Vorath to finish what she had started. "My sight sees many things," Vorath said, stopping in front of Blake. "It sees the truth in every heart, the intentions behind every action. I have watched you, human, since you entered my hall. I saw how your eyes moved toward the exits. I saw how you positioned yourself away from your ambassador. I saw the anticipation in your face when the wine was about to be drunk." Blake's smile faltered. "I do not know what you think you saw, but I know exactly what I saw." Vorath turned to his guards. "This man was part of the conspiracy. Search him." 2 guards grabbed Blake before he could move. They held him in place while a third searched his pockets and clothing. It did not take long to find the evidence. A small communication device, different from the standard equipment. A vial of clear liquid that the scanner identified as the same poison found in the wine. And a data chip containing messages that linked him to Counselor Dreth and others. Blake's face went pale as the evidence was displayed for all to see. His mask finally crumbled, revealing the hatred underneath. "You fools," he snarled. "You have no idea what you have done. Humanity does not deserve to survive. We are a disease spreading through the galaxy, and someone had to stop us before it was too late." Daniel stepped forward, his face showing a mixture of anger and sorrow. "Gary, we worked together for 10 years. I trusted you. I considered you a friend. Blake spat the word like poison. "You were always so blind, Daniel. So full of hope for a future that will never come. Humanity is weak. We are insects compared to the powers that rule this galaxy. The only way to survive is to submit, to prove ourselves useful to stronger masters. If I had killed you tonight, the Zirathi would have destroyed Earth, and the survivors would have had no choice but to serve." "Serve whom?" Kate asked, her voice sharp despite her exhaustion. "Who are you working for, Blake?" Blake laughed, a cold and empty sound. "You will never know. My masters are patient. If this plan failed, they will simply try another, and another. Humanity will fall eventually. It is only a matter of time." Vorath gestured, and the guards dragged Blake away toward a side door. His laughter echoed through the hall until the door closed behind him and silence returned. But the purge was not finished. Vorath turned his attention to the Zirathi side of the conspiracy. His golden eyes swept across the council members until they found Counselor Dreth trying to hide among his colleagues. "Dreth," Vorath said, and the name carried the weight of a death sentence. The counselor fell to his knees. "High King, please. I can explain. I was manipulated by the humans. They forced me to. My sight does not lie. Varus' voice was cold as the space between stars. You have been working against the Dominion for decades. You sold secrets to our enemies. You betrayed your own people. And tonight, you tried to use my hall, my ceremony, my sacred wine to start a war that would have drowned the galaxy in blood. Dreth began to weep, tears streaming down his silver scales. Mercy, my king. Please, mercy. Mercy is for those who deserve it. Voreth raised his hand. You will be taken to the deep prisons, where our ancestors judged their greatest criminals. You will live for many years in darkness, with only your memories for company. And every day, you will remember this moment, when your treachery was exposed before all. Guards moved to take Dreth away. As they dragged him toward the same door through which Blake had disappeared, he screamed curses and pleas that no one listened to. One by one, his co-conspirators were identified and taken as well. 3 more Zirithi Council members. 2 servants. A guard who had helped switch the wine. By the time it was over, the great hall felt emptier and cleaner, as if a sickness had been removed from it. Vareth returned to the center of the room, where Daniel and Kate still stood together. The Alpha King looked tired, Kate realized. Even an immortal ruler carried burdens, and tonight had added new ones to his shoulders. Ambassador Harris, Vareth said, I owe you an apology. You came to my world in good faith, seeking friendship and alliance. Instead, you found treachery and poison. Members of my own council tried to kill you in my own hall. Daniel shook his head. High King, the conspiracy included humans as well. We bear equal responsibility for what happened tonight. Perhaps? Voreth paused, considering his next words carefully. But there is something I must tell you. Something that changes everything. He walked to the stained table where the wine had been spilled. The white cloth was ruined now, marked forever by the poison that Kate had prevented from reaching Daniel's lips. Voreth touched the stain and then turned back to face the humans. When my people first observed humanity, Voreth said, we saw a young species, weak and primitive by our standards. Your technology was laughable. Your military was no threat to us. Many in my council argued that you were not worth our attention. He began to pace slowly, his footsteps echoing in the quiet hall. Others argued that you were dangerous. They said that humans spread too quickly, bred too fast, adapted too well. They saw a species that might one day challenge the Dominion itself. These counselors wanted to destroy you before you could grow strong. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. She had always known that humanity's survival was not guaranteed. But hearing it spoken so plainly by the most powerful being in 300 star systems made it terrifyingly real. I listened to both arguments, Voreth continued, and I made a decision. I invited you here tonight not to form an alliance, but to test you, to see what kind of species you truly are. He stopped pacing and faced Kate directly. I expected to see weakness. I expected to see fear and desperation and the pathetic hope of creatures who know they are outmatched. Instead, I saw something that surprised me. Voreth placed his hand on Kate's shoulder. It was a gesture she did not understand, but she could feel its importance from the way every Zirithi in the hall drew a sharp breath. I saw courage, Voreth said. I saw a young woman willing to sacrifice everything for those she loves. I saw a spirit that refuses to surrender, even when facing impossible odds. This is what humanity offers. Not ships or weapons or resources, but a fire in the heart that never dies. He released Kate's shoulder and turned to address the entire hall. Tonight, the conspiracy wanted to prove that humans cannot be trusted. Instead, they proved the opposite. This woman showed more honor in one desperate act than all the traitors in this room showed in their entire lives. Voreth raised his voice, and it filled the hall like the sound of mountains speaking. Let it be known throughout the Dominion. From this day forward, humanity is under the protection of the Alpha King. Any who threaten them threaten me. Any who attack them attack the Dominion itself. The Zirathi in the hall responded with a sound that Kate had never heard before. It was deep and resonant, like distant thunder, and it seemed to shake the very stones beneath her feet. She realized it was a sound of approval, of agreement. High King Vorath had just changed the destiny of her entire species. The ceremony resumed 3 hours later. New wine was brought, tested thoroughly by both Zirathi and human technicians. New goblets were placed on a fresh table with clean white cloth. And this time, when Daniel Harris lifted his wine to drink, Kate Morgan stood beside him with a goblet of her own. "To friendship between our peoples," Daniel said, his voice strong and clear. "To friendship," Vorath echoed. Raising his own goblet on the high platform, they drank together, and the hall erupted in cheers that shook the crystal ceiling. Kate tasted the wine, which was sweet and strange, and unlike anything she had ever experienced. It burned slightly as it went down, but it was a good burn, a warm burn, like a fire kindled against the cold. When the formal ceremony ended, the feast truly began. Food was served in great quantities, dishes from 100 worlds across the Dominion. Zirathi and humans mingled together, talking and laughing and slowly learning to see each other as something other than strangers. Kate sat at the high table now, at Vorath's personal invitation. She felt out of place among the rulers and nobles who surrounded her, but the Alpha King had insisted. He wanted her close, he said, so he could learn more about the species that had produced such a remarkable individual. "You seem uncomfortable," Vorath observed, his golden eyes watching her with something that might have been amusement. "I am a junior aide," Kate replied. 3 months ago, I was filing reports and scheduling meetings. I do not belong at a king's table. Positions can change. Vorath took a slow drink from his goblet. "What you did tonight showed more leadership than many who have sat in this hall for centuries. Your ambassador is fortunate to have you at his side." Kate glanced down the table to where Daniel was deep in conversation with several Zirathi trade officials. He looked tired but happy, his earlier fear replaced by cautious optimism. The alliance was real now. Earth had a future. "Can I ask you something, High King?" Kate said. "You may ask." I may choose not to answer. The sight, the ability to read intentions and emotions. Is it truly as powerful as people say? Vorath was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, more personal. "The sight shows me shadows of the truth. It reveals the shape of what people feel, but not always the reasons behind those feelings. When I looked at you tonight, I saw desperation and love and fierce determination. But I did not see the poison until I tasted the wine. Your sacrifice could have been for nothing if I had been slower to understand. But you did understand," Kate said. "That is what matters." "Eventually, yes. But I almost did not." Vorath set down his goblet and turned to face her fully. "There is something I have not told you, human. Something I have not told anyone." Kate waited, sensing that something important was coming. "When you spilled that wine, my first instinct was to order your execution. You had insulted me in my own hall, before my own people. My anger was immediate and overwhelming. If I had spoken in that moment, you would be dead now." Kate's breath caught in her throat. "But I hesitated," Vorath continued. "For just a moment, I looked at your face and saw something that made me pause. Not innocence, not even righteousness. Just absolute certainty that what you were doing was necessary. That certainty gave me time to think, time to look deeper, time to taste the wine and discover the truth." He reached out and touched her shoulder again. The same gesture he had used earlier in front of the entire hall. "Among my people, this touch is the mark of honor. It is given only to those who have proven themselves worthy of standing beside kings. In 10,000 years of Dominion history, it has never been given to an outsider. He paused. Until tonight, Kate did not know what to say. She felt tears threatening to fall and blinked them back furiously. She was a diplomat, a professional. She could not cry at the table of an alien king. The conspirators mentioned masters, Kate said, trying to redirect the conversation to safer ground. Blake said someone was behind the plot. Someone patient. Vareth nodded, his expression growing serious again. There are powers in this galaxy older and darker than the Dominion. They have watched from the shadows for millennia, waiting for opportunities to sow chaos and destruction. Tonight's conspiracy was almost certainly their work. Will they try again? Undoubtedly. They will see humanity as a target now, a young species protected by the Dominion. They will try to separate you from us, to isolate you, to destroy you before you can grow strong. Kate thought about the billions of people on Earth who had no idea how close they had come to extinction tonight. They were sleeping in their beds, going about their lives, trusting that someone somewhere was looking out for them. That trust was both humbling and terrifying. Then, we will need to be prepared, Kate said firmly. Vareth smiled, showing teeth that were sharper than any human's. Yes, you will. And you will not be alone. The Dominion protects its allies with the full force of our power. Any who threaten humanity will face consequences they cannot imagine. The feast continued until the twin suns began to rise over the alien horizon. By then, the formal treaty had been drafted and signed. Earth was now an official ally of the Zirathi Dominion, with all the protections and responsibilities that entailed Dot as the human delegation prepared to leave. Daniel found Kate standing alone near one of the great windows. She was watching the sunrise, the way the purple light transformed into gold and orange and finally into brilliant white. You saved my life tonight, Daniel said. Coming to stand beside her, Kate shook her head. I did what anyone would have done. I did what anyone would have done. No, you did what no one else could have done. You saw the danger when no one else did, and you found a way to stop it even when you were alone and outmatched. He put his hand on her shoulder, in almost the same place where Vareth had placed the mark of honor. I have worked with many people in my career, Kate. Brilliant people, brave people, dedicated people. But I have never met anyone quite like you. Kate finally let the tears fall. She had been holding them back for hours, staying strong when she needed to stay strong. But here, in this quiet moment with the man she had nearly died to save, she could finally let go. I was so afraid, she whispered. I was so afraid it would not work, that I would die for nothing, that you would drink the poison before I could stop you. Daniel pulled her into a hug, holding her while she cried. He did not speak. He did not need to. His presence was enough. When Kate finally pulled away and wiped her eyes, she saw that the transport ship was ready. The other members of the delegation were boarding, talking excitedly about everything that had happened. The fear of last night had been replaced by hope for the future. What happens now? Kate asked. Now we go home, Daniel replied. We tell Earth about the alliance, about the treaty, about everything. And then we start building a future that neither species could achieve alone. They walked toward the ship together. At the door, Kate paused and looked back one last time at the great hall where her life had changed forever. She saw High King Vareth standing on a balcony above, watching the humans depart. When their eyes met, he inclined his head in a gesture of respect. Kate inclined her head in return. Then she turned and boarded the ship that would carry her home. In the years that followed, historians would write countless books about the night that changed everything. They would analyze the conspiracy, the poison, the political implications of the alliance. They would debate Vareth's motivations and the true nature of the site. But the image that remained in everyone's memory was simpler than all of that. It was a young woman with steady hands and a desperate heart, spilling a goblet of wine. And an ancient king, wise enough to ask why.